Call to order, councillors. Please take your seats and turn your mobile devices to silent. Thank you. Welcome to the public forum on the 16th of December 2024. The public forum relates to representations from the public on agenda matters before the ordinary meeting of council, which will commence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It is a requirement that I advise all present that the public forum is being live streamed, and I advise all present that your presence at this public forum is taken as consent that your image and your voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public by our live stream. Recordings of this public forum will remain on Council's website for at least 12 months. Councillors in attendance of this public forum are Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Annette Lawrence, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Adam Matchett, Councillor Noel Selby, Councillor Julie Coburn, Councillor Ben Pakes, and online Councillor Arthur Bain. I'll ask that no public interject when I'm speaking. Thank you. Staff in attendance. We have Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Wesley Trotter, Director of Utilities, Daniel Thorogood, Director of Corporate and Commercial, and Stephen Mitchell, General Manager. I'll now move into the acknowledgement of country. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Thungutty-Dungutty Nation. We pay respects to elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. We acknowledge the stolen generations and the need to change practices to be inclusive. This land was and always will be Thungutty-Dungutty land. I now call for any conflicts of interest. Councillor Pakes.
I'm a resident, conflict of interest in regards to I'm a resident of the floodplain, and also a conflict of interest with the South Kempsey master plan. I've been involved in sporting organisations for many years, so yeah.
So item 10.3 and 10.4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Was there any other conflicts? Oh, sorry, 10.2 and 10.4. Sorry. Arthur. Sorry, Councillor Bain.
Yeah, I potentially have a conflict of interest over the Phillip Drive development application. I'm seeking advice this evening about whether or not I should remove myself from the debate at the meeting tomorrow. But it's just a matter that's been brought to my attention today that there may be a conflict of interest. So I will just make councillors aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Do we have any other conflicts? I hear none. The General Manager will now outline the guidelines for the public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is to be strictly enforced by the Chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda of the Council meeting that they've applied to address the Council on. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If a speaker fails to observe a direction from the chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the chairperson, may, through the chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at a public forum. Questions put to a speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put to them. Answers by the speaker to each question are to be limited to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of the council, council laws, or council staff. When addressing the council, speakers at public forums must comply with the code of meeting practice and all other relevant council codes, policies, and procedures. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in inappropriate conduct, the chairperson may request the person to refrain from the inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the chairperson's request, the chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. This does not limit the ability of the chairperson to deal with disorderly conduct by speakers at public forums in accordance with the provisions of the Code of Meeting Practice. Where a speaker engages in inappropriate conduct, the General Manager or their delegate may refuse further application
for the site, which will ensure the protection of the wetland. We congratulate council staff for obtaining this concession from the developer. However, in view of past events and the current topography of this boundary, we are sceptical that it ensures the protection of the wetland. Number 4, subdividing the site now may jeopardise the ability of council and the Land and Environment Court and the Land Environment Court to consider the cumulative impacts of all the apartment blocks and associated works. The developer's EIS prepared for this subdivision states the proposed subdivision aligns with the recent development consent for townhouses and multiple dwellings on the site and will assist in redeveloping the remaining portions of the site into the future through providing manageable development parcels. The premature subdivision of stages 2 and 3 will therefore trigger a breaking up of the development into separate parts, which would allow environmental considerations to be limited to a building-by-building analysis, instead of considering the project as a whole and its cumulative impacts. And number 5, this subdivision plan has no social licence. Councillors might assume that with only 46 public submissions received on this DA compared to over 400 for the concept plan, this DA is not of great concern to the community. I would remind them that the subdivision DA went on exhibition the following month after the close of the exhibition period for the concept plan DA. The local community thought they'd done their job by opposing the concept plan DA, and many of them did not understand the added significance of the subdivision DA. Apparently, the rather lightweight public participation process undertaken on behalf of the developer was focused on the concept plan also and did not refer to the subdivision DA at all. So what should council do? We see 2 options: either reject the subdivision DA and tell Rise to come back after the litigation currently underway in the Land Environment Court has been concluded in one way or another, or approve the current subdivision application subject to it only applying to the stage 1 area. Our preference is option 1, but we could live with option 2. Either of these would be consistent with the vast majority of public submissions objecting to this DA and the DA for the concept plan. Whichever road council goes down, voices will continue to push for stage 3 to be abandoned and for the northern part of the site to be rehabilitated to a landform and species biodiversity consistent with the buffer zone of a coastal wetland. So I'll leave you with the question that's been occupying our minds lately in relation to this development application. How is the public interest served by approving this subdivision plan in its current form at this time, especially while the shape of future development is before the court and the litigation that was initiated by the developer? This site's been a curse on the community and the Shire since 1987. We've just had a major victory with the planning panel. Let's not jeopardise it by surrendering at the next hurdle. Instead, let's stay strong and take a bit longer if necessary to come up with a plan which enhances rather than decimates the character and environment of Civic Fox. How's that for timing? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Are you happy to take questions or are you finished?
I might, for some questions, have to call on my colleague Warren, who's been involved for a lot longer than me.
Yep. Do we have any questions? Councillors? Councillor Wyatt.
Just a question in terms, is that document that you have written down, can that be emailed to us?
Mr. Byrne, would you be happy to send an email copy of your speech? Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Councillor Coburn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that. Can I just ask you your feedback that you've had through the community? What genuinely is their greatest concern, do you think, if we go ahead and approve the whole of the subdivision in one lot?
Mr. Byrne, turn your microphone on. Thank you.
There is very little understanding of this subdivision plan in the general community. The concept plan they could get their heads around, but I'd be misrepresenting the community if I told you anything more than that, because it's just a big question mark for them. So it's kind of been up to the Voices group to try and dig down and get into the detail.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor Coburn.
So in relation to the Voices group, I know that group is of a fairly decent size. how many within the group do you think understand what will happen if this subdivision goes through in the voices?
Just make sure your microphone's on. And Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, sure. So the voices represent about 3,000 people. I was going to talk about it later. So they really don't understand the concept, I don't think, of the subdivision. They are really concerned about, obviously, the things that council supported, like character and the wetlands damage potential. I think their concern is very much one of we don't understand why, particularly stages lots 29 to 30, I think it is, or 21 even, to 30, 29, would go ahead when it's in front of the court. What's the hurry? And their real concern is that someone's going to get up to mischief. I think the APZ zone, which is marked number 2 on that map you've got, is right behind the whole lot. And the developer consent says, do what you like. And we're worried about that. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Wyatt.
So would you mind just repeating what you're recommending for councillors to do, please?
Either reject the subdivision DA and tell Rise to come back after the current litigation process has been concluded, either by resubmitting the same subdivision DA for approval or by negotiating a new plan that reflects the court's judgment and which has the support of council and the community. That's one option. Or approve the current subdivision application subject to it only applying to the stage 1 area, that is the already approved townhouses and mixed use area. This would exclude the portion of the proposed lot 1 that runs along the northern perimeter of the site.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
So then just looking at this map that you've given us, the colour map.
Yeah.
So it would be approving stage 1 as a community title subdivision, but lot whatever would just apply all over stage 3 for now until at further time.
Yeah, that would remain one consolidated lot until planning approval has been granted for stage 2 or stage 3 or both.
Okay, so you'd end up with smaller lots in stage 1, one big lot in stage 3 and one big lot in stage 2.
Well, if they get planning consent for either stage 2 or stage 3, then they're likely to want subdivision approval. Our concern is that by seeking subdivision approval now, they can take that to the court and say, well, council's found that there's no significant adverse environmental effect from this subdivision plan, therefore we should be able to build on it.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. A question in regards to your group. Has your group looked at the impact of 2050 and 2100 sea level rise impact on that site? Relevant to this DA to make it relevant, a relevant question?
Yep.
Warren, please.
So, yeah, hi again. We've done some modelling by a hydrologist, because I should say quickly, in our group now, we're lucky to have 2 ecologists, someone who's been a town planner, and it's a couple of geologists, hydrologists, and there's done some modelling, and we are very concerned about the impacts of climate change. A lot of the standard modelling doesn't include that, and but even still, they've got to fill that northeastern end by about 3-4 metres to get it up so it won't flood in 2030, I think. But we can give you more information. I can get you the modelling that your hydrologist has done and send it to you. So we don't believe it pays enough attention to the impacts of climate change.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, and just on that, so what stage do you understand that would be made available to council? As in, what part of the DA process will that come to council for us?
You've probably found that you'll find, I'll stand corrected, there's actually one of the submissions to the concept DA. We've also submitted to, when we're allowed to talk to Land and Environment Court conciliation hearing on site there. So we've got it. but we haven't submitted to council. All we have in relation to concept DA. I can't really talk about this particular DA, but it's all there. So if you'd like a copy, you can have it.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
We now have Tony James, who will speak against item 10.2, adoption Lower Macleay flood risk management study and plan. Mr. James, when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Mr. Mitchell, staff, councillors, YouTubers and ladies and gentlemen. I wish to talk about the Lower Macleay River Risk Management and Study Plan report. This press report has only been online today, the current one. So it's only been released online today, and the draft has been put out in April this year, which really makes me wonder how we can really assess this project. So this is why we have to have an SRV to try and compensate for all these mistakes that's being made to try and justify what we're trying to do. Why are we having a SRV? Just to try to do that. So in April 15, we had a public meeting at Smithtown Hall. Poor venue, echoing in the hall, poor screen, couldn't see the lighting, 17 options pasted on the wall. Farmers walked out during the meeting because they couldn't understand, couldn't hear the echoing, couldn't see the screen, couldn't get anything done. The staff were notified, nothing was done about it. So they couldn't, so the locals could not see what was going on. My main problem with this is the Blackwater being on the floodplain and Hathead Village. And we have a rise in Hathead Village of 1 metre eventually with our climate change. My objective is to get, the only way we can achieve this Blackwater problem, which only occurs 99% of the time when we have flood, man-made water when they release the opening gates. Otherwise, the water stays below. If we can keep our water below 1.5 metres AHD, we have not got a problem with Blackwater on East Kinchler or the Swan Pools, which I own. Part of the Swan Pools is on my property. So the only time we do get it is when man-made water is put onto there, and so otherwise we don't get Blackwater. So to achieve, we can never stop the water on the flood. We have to have it. It's part of our life. So the only way we can stop this Blackwater or minimise it is to get the water from the relief gates on Kinchler Creek to Corrogaro Creek as fast as we can. So the only way we can do it has been achieved. If you go back and have a look at the Webb McEwen and Associates presentation in 2099, they do it. And it wasn't even in the latest version of this report. It's not even mentioned how they did it. It's done the same way. We need to be able to put a straight line from the relief gates across to Kelly Creek and guide the water through some low training walls, which they're already there. I've got them on my property. I've got the training walls on my property, or one of them anyway, one side. It's when they took the church from Belmore River to Kinchler to Hathead across the floodplain. So I've got a wall there already. It's all ready to go. So that's the basic. So the only way we can do it, that will get the water initially across the floodplain. Then we've got to get the problem out of Hathead. Hathead, if we clean the problem is now all the headwaters of Corrogaro Creek are filtered up and vegetation. We need to get them clean, to get them done. Then we need to reinstate, we've got to repair the choke gates down Corrogaro Creek, which are in disrepair. They're just about to fall down and knock down the footbridge going across Hat Head, or someone will get killed by the debris coming off that, and then reinstate Rose Cut so all the water coming off the floodplain can bypass Kinchela Creek. Oh, sorry, can bypass Hat Head. It can never stop it, because it wasn't even brought up in this report that half the water goes around the back and comes back through Gap Road. It was never mentioned. Getting the water off the floodplain, there was nothing mentioned about Back Creek, nothing about the Gladstone drain. There was nothing about the operation of the gates on Kinchela Creek.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Wyatt.
Just again, some clarification questions regarding Hat Head and Swanpool. So you mentioned reinstating Rose Cut, widening the headwaters of Crogro Creek, and widening the head where the Swanpool comes off into Crogro, widening the headwaters.
Not widening, just putting it back to the way it was, just getting rid of the vegetation and the silt, which was caused by, in 21, the leak from the gates were leaking. Salt water entered the creek for about 6 months, and all the reeds died up in there, and that's virtually caused a lot of our dead vegetation up in there, and that's what's caused the siltation. It's just like having your kitchen sink at home blocked up. That's exactly the same scenario. If your sink's blocked, you unblock it, and that's exactly what's happening now, because we just can't get that water flow through to the floodgate to get it out quick.
Yeah, thanks for that. I'll address that question in meeting tomorrow. But can you, what was the third one about the Swanpool and your property?
I own part of the Swanpool. Yeah. Half of my property is on the Swanpool. So that's heaven to me. We do cherish the Swanpool. I believe we're better landowners on the Swanpool than National Parks and Wildlife. We do look after. We have pigs. We have wild dogs. We do look after the Swanpool, and it is we've got natural swans there. It's just all my cattle integrate and work together with the natural environment. Nothing to have in March, April, 200 pairs of swans nesting in my backyard, and it is the most beautiful part of the world. It's unbelievable, better than Kakadu.
Thank you, Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation. I can see you're passionate about the Lower Macleay and the floodplain itself. Tell me about, what do you think could be put into the study? What do you think is missing? Do you think it's comprehensive, in your opinion, and your contact with other local farmers in Belmore and Kinchela?
There's a lot of things missing out of the floodplain. There's so I've picked up your wrong. Do you mind if I skip the? This was the 130-page document on the website just on Friday. Now we're up to 467 pages. So how does everyone have a go at that? Okay, a few of the things that I believe could be missing from the report. There was nothing in the report about controlling the floodgates, the crossover gates, or the relief gates. There was nothing about the ground saturation, which affects how much water stays on the floodplain. Nothing about the local rain we get. There was nothing about the barometric pressure, which, if you get a low barometer.
Yeah, can I just ask you to continue on that question?
Yeah, you can continue. I'll give you the rest of the
thank you.
minute. I'll be gracious.
The debris and the polluted water, which we have to put up with. The spiders and the snakes which come up into the land. Gladstone drain was never mentioned for draining. Our Back Creek was never mentioned for draining. When they discharge the water from our Stuart McIntyre Dam, they discharge it when it's high water, and that adds to our water load. Our Hat Head RS, our Rural Fire Services, has just lost its 2 senior volunteers, and I don't know how they're going to go during a flood. I really don't know. We've lost the 2 major people over there now. They've moved out, and that's serious. The water height was never mentioned in the report. In 2021, we had a water level of 2.7 metres, and in 2001, we had 3 metres on the floodplain. Now, there was nothing like that in AHD.
Thank you for that comprehensive list.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions?
So what's the best outcome
Councillor
from this?
Pakes.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, my apologies. What's the best outcome from this point, in your opinion, for farmers of the Lower Macleay? First question. Second question is, how do you think flood mounding should be used in the Lower Macleay? Relevant to the report.
Thank you. The first one, we to put training walls from the from Kingshilla Creek across to Croggo Creek. It's a no-brainer. They're half there now. It's just a matter of topping them up. I'd love a farm walk to come and have a look to see what I'm talking about. It's beautiful. All right. So, and that's the same as down at Belmore, from Belmore River to Ryan's Cut. That's a no-brainer. We don't have to dig. We don't have to put any sulphite soils there. There's nothing like that at all. We don't have to dig anything out. All we have to do is top up. We can get the sand out of Ryan's Cut. We get our fill for nothing. And the other one, the one that really surprised me was the flood mound. I could not believe that was just a joke. They're telling us now that we can only put livestock on our flood mounds. What about our stock, our chickens, our tractor, our silage, and where does my dog go to the toilet because we've got no grass? I can't believe it.
Thank you. Councillor Bain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. James. I'm trying to think. Would it be? How would you feel about a possibility of accepting the
Councillor Bain, your connection's not great. If you could turn off your camera and then repeat your question, that would be fantastic.
Okay, sorry about that. I'll try that again. Is that better?
Yep.
Hear me? Yeah. Okay. So my question was, as a way forward, Mr. James, how would you consider if we approved the report as it stands, with a review in 12 months to see if we can address the gaps that you've identified?
Definitely not. It's got to go back into a draft situation. There is too many mistakes. They've put my road at 1 metre. There's just constant mistakes in all the measurements during the flood plan. It's disappointing. I could go through them. I've got 50 options here at this stage, and it's got to go back into draft. It's got to be fixed. The council have got no capabilities and to fix up someone else's mistake. It's not to Kempsey Shire Council standard, this report. We don't rubber stamp it. Go back into draft, get it fixed by the consultant who wrote it, and let's keep going, because we can't accept it the way it is. It's not right, because it's just typical. It's just typical. And the other thing is the Kempsey emergency subplan. It's supposed to have been redone in 2022. It expired in 22 after 5 years. It's now next 2 weeks will be 25, and it still hasn't been done. It's kept saying to me, it's happening. It's never happened.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from councillors? Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Do you have a comment, Mr. General Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I might just ask Director Jackson to address some of those comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, look, at just a couple of them, which is essentially that, yes, we acknowledge there are some errors in the report itself, and those errors we've just received an updated version of that document this morning. So the errors through the report will be corrected in that version, which will be published shortly. And also that the SES are reviewing the subplan review, and obviously the work that goes into this and this preceding flood study informs that. So that is underway at the moment. The SES are updating that subplan.
Thank you. I'll now ask Mr. Paul Haler, who will speak against 11.1, notice the motion Horseshoe Bay Holiday Park units, to come forward.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. It's now been, it was 12 months ago, the council has faced the wrath of the community on approving an application for special rate variation. It seems like yesterday, and we've had a council election during that time. The need to do something about controlling rate increases to avoid unavoidable financial stress and ensure sound financial management by council dominated the conversation. Despite that noise, 4 councillors returned to office, one as mayor, and of course one of those 4 that voted against an application for a rate variation. It would be reasonable to assume that the community at large understood the financial necessities and voted for tough love, amongst other things. Under the newly elected mayor and councillors, the adoption of the approved special rate variation is still to be decided. Having said that, council certainly showed some financial leadership in the first meeting post-election by voting for the motion to adopt the proposal to rebuild the amenities block at South West Rocks Holiday with a bonus of 3 units located above them, a rather clever way of offsetting costs to Crown Lands funds or the general fund. Simply put, the financial equivalent of a self-funded retiree not imposing on taxpayers' money, and at the same time still contributing to the general economy via those investments to growth sectors enjoyed by the taxpayers, in other words, the people they invest in. Plus getting a return on those investments, similar to the amenities block with the units, an internal rate of return of 6.25%, plus the impact of boosting a further 450k roughly into the local economy by those people in those units spending in the economy, another 450k a year. We need to find areas to either increase revenue that contributes to reduction of costs and identify areas where costs can be all but eliminated. It may also be assumed that staff costs in terms of hours are shared at times with Crown Land work, which in effect lower costs of the general fund productivity. The state government has already shown its will to treat councils in a commercial sense. The cost shifting, as it is affectionately referred to, is a reality, and fights behind the scenes are not delivering any relief to those who pay, the ratepayers. The emergent service assets cost shifting demonstrates that despite the volunteer involvement and any number of donations made by these services show the steel and the determination of the state. The holiday parks in our shire fall under that banner. Without being naive, the state giveth and the state can taketh away. Viewscape. I walked the southwest streets with artist's impression in hand of the proposal and visited some business and also spoke to locals wandering in this beautiful area. The overwhelming number on site thought that the drawing was just a new roof. It had to be pointed out that at its highest point, it was a massive 1.49 metres higher than its current level, dipping down by 6%. Businesses were not concerned and thought it was not threatening a reasonable view. I accept that submissions may differ greatly from this. However, when you have a survey sent to you from Telstra, you only fill out if you're angry. Most people are busy working, paying tax, saving for homes, buying beer and or going fishing. But they do elect people to do the right thing on their behalf. Death by 1,000 cuts. There may be an element in the community that think precedents are set on projects that just lay the way for other projects that may really be environmentally important. So by objecting to this tiny proposal will help to stop or balk future projects. All that can be said about that is simply a misconception. Maybe keeping the powder dry for environmental disasters like windmills marching up the windy floodplains or the valley decorated by overhead power lines is a serious issue. Or, as previously stated, the seas rising to the dress circle of the holiday parks is a serious issue. But squashing an ant with a sledgehammer is hardly credible. So I implore councillors to vote against this motion and keep the message of responsible financial management, indeed leadership, in the eyes of those who are looking for indicators of hope from you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haler. Are you happy to take questions?
At this stage I am.
Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Haler, can you please expand on your analogy of the self-funded retiree and a government-funded retiree in relation to the amenities block with and without the units?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Saul, Councillor Saul. By that, if you're a taxpayer and you're looking like at a self-funded retiree, they are off the government purse. They're self-funded. Their investments are going into private enterprise. People are employed in that private enterprise. They pay tax, and it's a very giving situation. Plus, they fund their own retirement through it. If a person who's not a self-funded retiree is on the public purse, can't spend as much money because they're a little bit restricted by what they receive, and the taxpayer paying up to 30 cents in the dollar is fully funding that person. So I see that a block of units that are really unobtrusive despite all the noise above a set of amenities is the equivalent of a self-funded retiree.
Thank you. Councillor Pakes.
Yeah, g'day, Paul.
G'day,
I note you've walked the site. Did you recognise there was a aerial on the building that showed basically 1.4 higher? That's my first question. I'll let you answer that and then I'll go again.
Yes, I did. Well, as a matter of fact, I'm stretching the truth. Didn't even notice the aerial. Is that a trick question?
No, it just shows the exact. It's pretty much shows how much higher the building will be at that point. Yeah, so you can see it there. There's a note reference.
Well, it's like a millimetre in your eyesight. It's like getting a piece of fluff in your eyesight. It's just anyway.
My second question is, I've asked this to pretty much everyone in council on this DA. Have you cited any other accommodation where there's a kitchen and amenities block underneath paid accommodation of a good quality anywhere in Australia?
That's similar to that. No, I haven't. So it's unique. It's good. It's financially and visually acceptable.
How do you think that might? Do you think a design issue that? For me, it's around design issue. Do you think it's a design issue to have a configuration like that?
No. I think it shows initiative, and people will pay $5,000 a week for a tent in Crescent Head.
Thank you, Mr. Haler. Do we have any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yes.
Mr. Warren Bailey will now speak for item 11.1, notice of motion, Horseshoe Bay Holiday Park units.
Well, sorry. Okay, thank you. And this is on? Just okay. Okay. So thanks for the opportunity. Originally, the voices and the Kempsey residents had prepared separate submissions, but were advised only one person could talk for this motion, which is a bit disappointing, of course. So thanks to Dick Pearson for allowing me to speak, and this should be considered a joint submission. So by way of introduction, the Voices has 2,300 people on the Facebook group, 1,000 people, 1,100 people in their database, and there's some overlap, but I'm quite comfortable with saying we represent 3,000 residents and tourists. That's 3,000. We've spoken a lot about the character of Southwest Rocks, particularly in relation to the Rise project. KSC staff have done a fantastic job in conveying this message to the planning panel and the LEC. We believe the fundamentals of the potential economic and social damage that could occur without a character of developments apply in both cases. Of course, the difference is one of magnitude, but the impact of each additional out of character development is cumulative. We also don't believe that the council should compete with their local businesses in any sector unless there's a compelling reason to do so, and we can't see a compelling reason in this case. So we applaud the council staff's initiatives to improve KFC financial sustainability. However, as the public do not have access to the business case, we can only conclude that financial logic of this case fails to adequately assess risk. Our reasons are summarised in the slide above. I hope you can all see it. I won't read it out again. All risk, we believe, should be identified and quantified. Oops, sorry, back again. So I think we've seen this diagram before. The proposed upper floor is 140% larger than the existing building and around 1.5 higher. This clearly indicates the structure's significant increase in mass and bulk in this key location. And thanks, Dick, for this slide. The original consultant's report concluded there was sufficient merit to justify contravening the council's policies and legislation in this instance. The term ancillary use, the pillar of the DA for approval, is subject and open to interpretation. While this discussion is not about the merits of the approved DA, the factors just mentioned, plus those listed on this slide, provide a source of reputational damage for the council, in our view. The concept plans and the have done in good faith in consultation with the community, and we believe this is a departure from those plans, and so another source of reputational potential damage. There appears to be no mention of this type of accommodation in the above plans. We do agree that high yield accommodation is an attractive idea when it is built in character with surrounds, otherwise it is a risk. So here's the view from, I must declare an interest, I guess, I drink there a lot, as you may have noticed. And that's the view from the front veranda of the Sea Breeze Hotel, which is arguably, it's my favourite drinking spot, and probably one of the two popular in South West Rocks. Imagine this view, 1.5 metres higher and 140% larger. So let's talk a little bit more globally. That's a quote from the Herald, which came around in 23. I'd like to focus on the emboldened numbers there. And I think it's vital to keep the Kempsey Shire economy that we keep is envisioned by the structure plan. And in the council's own words, the key tier and township for Kempsey Shire. All developments need to be considered in this high level context, not just on an isolated project by project basis. While I'm not trying to directly compare the numbers on the left slide, the bolden ones, they do highlight, I believe, the folly of the small picture approach. So they're the top attractions. 7 to 9 are in the rocks. Horseshoe Bay is one of them. Of course, Main Beach and Maritime Museum aren't that far away. I'd just like to talk a bit about competing with local business now. Some small businesses objected to the day or expressed support of the notion of the motion on our Facebook group. Potential reputational damage and economic impact should be quantified and accounted for as far as possible.
Sorry, that's your time.
Okay. Can I just conclude? Or you got it up there? That's the conclusion. Vote in favour.
You can conclude
okay.
Just on the slide, yep.
Thank you very much. Okay. So, in conclusion, reputational damage to the council. Sorry, wrong one. Quickly. For the economic benefit of the Macleay, protect income from tourism, don't compete with small business, retain community trust. So vote in favour of the notice of motion, and in future calculate financial benefits on a community basis in lieu of direct income with appropriate adjustment for risk, both financial and non-financial. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Do we have any questions, councillors? Councillor Pakes.
So voting against this, is there any other options outside this to mitigate the lost financial revenue? In your group's opinion, in that area?
In that area, that's a good question. I think we're happy with the amenities block being redone, but we are. I'll just go back to my conclusion, and that is that we are talking about a small mention, and so we don't believe it's really. I think the price of stuffing up tourism, if I can use that word, is far greater than the income you'll get from 3 blocks of units.
I'll ask you the same questions I asked the previous speaker. Have you ever seen units located on top of a amenities block and kitchen area or
no
catering area anywhere in Australia?
No.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Councillor Coburn.
Thanks, Mr. Bailey, for that presentation. I guess my question's around in relation to council's plans that have previously been on public exhibition. Do you feel that this decision to put these units on top of the amenities block stepped outside of what the community's in theory already agreed to in previous plans, like the Southwest Rock Structure Plan?
Sorry, thanks, Lucy. My understanding is, of course, this sort of development is not in the Horseshoe Valley Master Plan, and I'll stand corrected on that. It talks about extra cabins and things like that, but not units in above that block. So the community expectation is somewhat different to what's been approved.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Do we have any other questions from councillors? No. Mr. Are we all done? Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for your presentation. Mr. General Manager.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just like to just probably clarify one point in relation to tourism and adverse impacts on tourism. Obviously, from adding additional accommodation options, you'll be providing additional families opportunity to come. I guess that's been considered in terms of the analysis in terms of everything we do in relation to the holiday park. So just, I guess, be caution around the assumption that adding extra accommodation within the Shire will actually provide an opportunity to attract further people to come and visit.
Thank you. That concludes our public forum for today. Thank you to all the speakers for coming along and participating. I really appreciate the time, and thank you for councillors for paying attention and asking lots of questions. See you all tomorrow for the council meeting. Thank you.